let's just move leg to leg just to ease into it. So just try and pay attention to these places here. Yeah, so it's like I open this up, so the knee sort of goes out to stretch this area and it just ends up pulling me across. So this opens up. So there's a little sense of turning this way. It's like you're trying to make like a cave, like a sort of hollow here, the hole for the other person to fall into. I don't want to move the weight too soon because this is like stretchy. It's like elastic. Something here stretches open and then the elastic pulls me across. Yeah, so we want to yield. We want to move because we've yielded, basically, rather than because we're just pushing ourselves side to side. So I open up a hole. And then I flow across. So the first thing I do is make that hole for the yield. And then the movement comes out of that. So something stretches. Ooh. And the difficulty is that when you do that, it tends to sort of stick your bum out behind you a bit. And so you have to really concentrate on the buttock, sort of going down the leg. So this is coming under. Yeah. So the way there's a sort of a turn like this as you do it, that's sort of creating this hollow. But that's really just coming from that sense of opening rather than because you've done an actual turn. So, so I open, yeah. So these places here. So if you just think, where your gonads are, so your testicles or your ovaries, yeah, so they're here and here. So it's like an area that sort of just encloses both. So that whole area just opens up and sort of swallows, and it's that makes me move across. So it opens, and then as I move into the foot, it closes, it envelops. And then let's just stand. Yeah, so the Dan Chen, it's almost like it's in the front, and then it's got these two hollows either side that just slip down into the legs. But the same with all the centers, all the front centers. So the heart as well is sort of here, and then it sort of goes back into the shoulders and around into the arms. So we want this feeling, when we settle down, that we also settle back. We also settle back into the posture. So part of me is swelling backwards. I've got a student, and I'm just trying to get her to meditate. And she says, every time I sit down to meditate, I remember all the things I need to do, and I get up and do them. So that sense of just inhibiting that and just doing the opposite. So instead of getting up and going, getting up to go, you actually settle down and settle back. Yeah, you just allow all that anxiety to wash away. And the action that makes you get up and go is basically the tension in the lower back. So the tendency for your bum to stick out and your chest to rear up, that's the action that would bring you out of your posture, fueled by the legs. And so just allowing the back of the dantian, the min meng, to sort of swell backwards a little bit. So this really is a cave, yeah? So you've got the two caves here for yielding, but then you've got the big cave here, which is where your insides live. And you have this sense of almost falling backwards. So you have to reach forwards with your mind to balance that sense of the body falling backwards. So this is why the arms are up in riding horse. Okay, now let's just bring the arms down. So we just want to feel how bringing the arms up into ward off, basically, how that adjusts the posture and changes our relationship with the space in front of us. Yeah? So just let the arms come up. And just feel you will naturally lean back a little bit with the upper back to balance the change, because your center of gravity changes. When you bring your arms up, it's pulling you forward slightly because the arms are heavy. And so you have to lean back a little bit with the upper back. And there's a sense that this actually comes forwards and down the legs. Yep. And so what you're doing is you're just changing the angle of the lower back, really, so that you've got almost a sense of cutting under and up. You're creating this circuit, the energy that flows down your body, down your back, basically, comes under and comes up in front of you, beckoned by your hands, and that's subtle leaning back. But it's not the hands lifting like this. It's not your body going up. Your body is actually going down. And the spine is very subtly cutting under. You don't want to use tension here to pull your bum under. It's not this. Just relax it and just stay in the posture and just feel your min meng. Let all that tension in the lower back push backwards, if anything. So there's a sense that you're bringing up a column of energy in front of you, where the other person would be standing if you were pushing hands with them. Yeah, so they would be, this distance away from here. You're just bringing a lift up the other person's body, a lift of good energy. By virtue of your posture, by virtue of your presence and your posture, not because you've done anything special. Okay, so let's just let the hands down again. And then just repeat it. So just up, just feel how it changes the posture. Allow yourself to lean back. And then down again. And you can feel, when you let the hands down, it's like you come back to yourself, because you lean slightly forwards. And then as soon as you bring the arms up and allow yourself to lean back, you're now attending to the space where the other person would be. And then slowly down. Just feel how your head just comes slightly forwards. And now you're inside and sort of neutral. So you're just with that vertical line that passes all the way down and all the way up. And then here, it changes a little bit. Now you have a circuit between you and the potential other. And just feel what it does here. Yeah? You want the feeling that your lower back has just sort of merged with the legs, rather than being like an S shape that's sitting on top of the legs. So your tail is very much not sticking back. Your tail is just going down with the legs, so that it feels like your legs are just extensions of your spine. So we become an S shape, but from the ground rather than from here. So this is the bottom of the S, the legs, and then the top of the S is my spine with my head. Yeah, so it's not just your upper back drifting backwards, it's this actually coming forwards and down. That's important. That's what's important, really. And then down again. And you can just feel how, when you let the hands down, you come back to self. It may be a quiet self, but it's still self. The only way you can forget self is by attending to the other. Forget self and become one with the Tao. So in Tai Chi terms, the Tao is represented by the other person, this sort of strangeness that's in front of us. And you want to sort of treat them with a certain reverence that actually allows a lift of energy up through them. So they become better because of your presence. You're not pressing down at them, which we'd normally do with the head if we were considering them or thinking about them or interacting with them on a verbal level. There's this pressure all the time from on high. And then the only thing they can do then is pull away from that. Yeah? So here, you're slipping under and just getting this, it's a really fine energy that comes up. It's lovely when you do it with another person. And then this is very much the center then, so it's a place where you just want to be, because it's the center of your S. It's where the two halves of the S connect. And you can practice it, when you go for a walk, everything you encounter, the trees, the telegraph poles, the people, the pillar boxes, all this, you can just, consider like there's a rising coming up through them. So the longer you stand with a quiet mind that's attending to this circuit, the more you sort of drift into the container. So we're a container that contains, but what we normally contain is the self. So we're trying to just sort of drift into the outside, if you like, into this shell, this shape that I'm making, so that this space can contain the magic. Yeah. So the longer you stand, the more you feel yourself relaxing into the outside edges, the more these hollows sort of open out. So basically, like the bigger you become in a way. Whereas, like, the average student, everything would gradually collapse as they got tighter and tighter, because their mind would be wandering because they were bored. So we're never bored. Okay, great. So now let's just practice full and empty. Yeah. So just slipping into one leg and just allowing the heel of the other foot just to lift. Yeah. And then coming back to the middle and then just slipping here. Yeah. So the full side, the side that becomes full, is the sinking side. And the side that becomes empty is the rising side. So you can also think in terms of full and empty as being up and down. So there's a down feeling here of something draining down, and an up feeling here, like an uplift. Yeah. So you really want to feel the two sides being different from each other. Imagine like you're split down the middle. This whole side is full and heavy, and this whole side is empty and light. Yeah. And then when you come back to the middle, you become the same. And then, just think of the yin yang symbol. So it all becomes black here, heavy, and it all becomes white, light here. So sink and relax. Yeah, so you sort of disappear into the full side. And that's the side where your consciousness anchors onto, if you like, so that your unconscious, the world of energy, can manifest in the other side. And you don't want to look too much at that, because it will just shrink back in again. So when I turn away from this side, it can become alive in an energetic way. And it's just a matter of just repeating and repeating with the mind present. And just feeling those two minds, like the conscious mind and the mind that is purposefully respectful and daredn't touch. Like the mind that sort of comes out here rather than here. It's a bit like in the eyes, you've got the sort of two different, you've got the rods and the cones. I can't remember which is which. So you've got like the cones that sort of focus and see colour and see detail. And then the rods that don't need a lot of light, but don't see much. Everything's blurred. Yeah? So it's like your peripheral vision here, sort of just the extent of your vision, but also beyond that. And then just make a fist. So make a fist with the hand of the side that's filling. Yeah. So it's almost like you're closing, you're gripping and closing into the fullness, which then allows the empty side to sort of extend, like there's these filaments extending into the world from this whole side of your body, particularly your wings, yeah? So the shoulder, back of the head, and then the hip here. So so if I want my energy to open out, then another part of me, the other half of me has to be holding on. Especially if I want to keep it going longer than a second or so. Yeah, and you can just feel how, this full side, okay, it's full and it's dense, but it's really quite limited. Yeah, it's very much a confined, intense space. And then you've got all this all this space around you, which is just the energy. Yeah, so you can just see how tiny the conscious is compared to the unconscious. Yeah. Yeah, it's very important that the mind, the mind we usually use stays on this side. So I don't want to colonize the unconscious with my consciousness, because then you just turn it into consciousness and it lacks that fizz, that magic, the spirit. Spirit disappears as soon as you look at something. So I turn away. And then, okay, now let's just bring the knee up a little bit higher. Yeah, so each time, just try and get the knee a little higher. You'd like to get the knee higher than the hip so that it starts pulling the back a little bit, pulling the lower back under. It's just golden rooster, basically. But really feeling the separation, feeling the two sides, full and empty. And then this is the interesting bit really, where it has to whoosh across. And again, just feel the container. So the outside edge of this foot, that's the edge of the container. So that's where I will tend to drift into in order to liberate the energy. So it almost feels like there's a wall here that I'm leaning onto. And then, ooh. And then let's just, same thing, but just pull the knee up so that you're using your arms to sort of just stretch the lower back under a little bit. And just feel how it just pulls the danchen forwards a little bit and really gets you going down the supporting leg. It's then that you sort of realize just how much your bum sticks out, even when you're trying your best not to. And just patient. Patience in Hebrew is savlanut, which is a lovely word. Okay, and then just back into here. Yeah, so lifting the knee like that, it really gets your lower spine blending with the legs. So it's like that we just want to mend the break between our upper and our lower body and just become connected within ourselves at least. Because only when you've got that can you consider connecting to the other person in any real way. And it is interesting, it's like every time you change, you change from one leg to the other or change from one exercise to another, we tend to take that as an opportunity to break here and come back to a sense of self from where we can then come back. But that breakage, it's not necessary. We think it is. We think we need to come back to, to base, if you like, in order to then come out again. but you don't need that. And when you're working with another person, you really feel it. You know, as soon as I say to them, okay, let's you lean on me or whatever, there's, oh, okay, oh. And then they're adjusting their posture, and then they start again, and it's like, it's all gone. So it's not the self that's important, it's the connection that you make, yeah? It's all connection. Connections within your body, and with the world, and with the other especially. Okay, so the problem with like meditation postures, of which this is one, is that it's double weighted, yeah? So okay, you're getting this going nicely, but you don't have the two sides of the body playing with each other, which is what we would want, yeah? Now, if you're sitting meditating, you know, one's normally like this or whatever, then, you know, what John used to say was, it's all you have to do is just introduce a little bit of asymmetry. So what you can do is just make a fist with the top hand, so you've got the contained and the container, yeah? So it's a bit like this, what they do in the martial arts, but down here. Okay, so now let's just try. So just striking the Dan Qian, just by considering the arm just like a rope, yeah? You just throw it out, and as it comes in, you just make a loose fist. So you're just making a slight bang, yeah? That's it. And just trying to get the Dan Qian just toning up a little bit. Yeah, so it's one gets a better sense of it when you just do one hand at a time. You know, really, you can only really get both hands going once you've got them individually. So what you need to do with the waist to actually just flick this arm around and strike yourself with it. So you naturally get tone up here to protect yourself from it. Now you don't want that tightening here to affect the lower back. If anything, the tightness here should allow the lower back to spread, yeah? So the front is getting tight to protect from the blow, and the back is relaxing. And now let's just let it settle, and then the other side, so boing. And there's always one arm that's more relaxed than the other. Ooh. And just feel the Dan Qian, you know, slightly above the bladder. You know, so if you get it too low and you want to go for a pee, then you'll really feel it. But so it's just below the navel. Just loosen it up. Okay, and now let's just try. So just flick with one hand, just keep the fist there, and now just let this arm come out into ward off, like half of riding horse, yeah? And just feel this side sort of, you're drifting into that outside edge of the arm and of the foot. But you've got a real sense of your knotted, tight center here. Yeah, so letting the arm go at the shoulder, letting the leg go at the hip. And just feel the full and empty. Feel how different those two sides feel. It doesn't matter which one's full and which one's empty, it's just the contrast, really. And then just let this arm down, just swing it a little bit to loosen it, because it will tend to get stiff. And now the other side, so just one. So this just locks in, like it's stuck, like a magnet has stuck it onto here. And then this one, you just get it out into ward off. And this sense of the shoulder is flowing down into the arm, and the hip is flowing down into the leg. You just want that sense of the container and the contained. So this arm is the container, and this is the thing that you're containing. And then just relax it. And then just one more here. It sort of sticks on, and then we just got to get this out. So it looks good. Yeah, so the fist is hard and dense and tight, and the arm that's out is really airy. Yeah, so you're surrounding your hardness in these sort of layers of softness that gets softer and softer and softer as it drifts away from the center. And just let it go. And then just one more with the other side. So this one comes up, sort of just holds, and then that's it. Yeah, so the fist is sort of holding on, so that this whole side of my body is sort of holding on. I'm sort of holding on to the ground here, but I'm drifting this side, so there's a real stretching between the sort of the full and the empty. Great. Let's just sort of loosen everything up. Okay. And now let's just try a bit of this one. So with the breathing, so breathing out as the hands come in, then breathing in as the hands go out. And just feeling as though it's your arms that are bringing the air in and out rather than your diaphragm. So the feeling of the breath is just like it's really thin. You can barely feel it coming in. You certainly can't hear it. So the quality of the breath coming in and out is very much, is just the same as the quality of the hands passing through the air. So it's very, very gentle. That's it, lovely. And just feel how the attention that you give the hands and your breathing tends to make the bum stick out. Yeah. So as you just repeat and repeat, you just slowly relax down into the legs, allowing the belly to drift forwards, so that we have that same posture that we had at the beginning. And then just start the belly pulling a little bit to bring the hands in, but be really careful you don't let the bum stick out. So the lower back just curves like this. So this part is still going down into the legs. It just bulges back a little. So what we're doing here is just trying to really feel the min meng, the point opposite the dantian on the back. Because that is like at the gate, that's the exit point. That's where the energy leaves. So as you breathe it out here and pull the belly in, just imagine that there's all these filaments of energy coming out of the min meng. You just have to be really careful that you don't do this. You don't come out of the legs. If anything, you go deeper into them. So the Min Meng breathes very much like your lungs do. So here the energy is sucking back into the Min Meng, the air is coming in here, and then here you're pushing the air out of the lungs and you're squeezing the energy out of the Min Meng. So stay with the medium that you're contained in, stay with the air. Same way if you were in the pool and you're not used to going, you're just very conscious of the water when you're there, when you're inside it, because it's just a bit unfamiliar, and also because it resists your movements. So I want the same feeling as the air. I'm reaching out, I'm reaching beyond myself all the time with my mind, so that I always have this sense of being in a world rather than in myself. And for me, it's just totally like the octopus, yeah? I mean, if John had seen that movie, he'd have just loved it. Because he used to talk about the seaweed. Remember, he used to say, the arm's like seaweed that's attached to the rock that's just flowing in the sea. And I remember thinking, wow, John's been to the seaside. And then he says, I saw it on TV. So. That's it, lovely. So Min Meng is spraying energy out, and then it sucks back in and comes out of the front, if you like. So here, the back is issuing energy, and then here your front is issuing energy. And then just coming to this exercise, the beginning one, the one we used to start with, and just using the back hand, this hand here that reaches behind, to just sort of gently take a handful of those filaments and just bring them around. Yeah. So you're just distributing the energy that's coming out of your Min Meng around to the front when you do this exercise. It's one of its interpretations, if you like. Yeah, so the back hand makes a fist and the front hand stays open. So fist, one hand a fist, one hand an open palm. It's always a good idea. And then you'll always be single weighted in a way. And you can do that with the form. You can sort of go through the form and just make a fist with the hand that's on the side that the weight is coming into, and let the other hand be really open. And then that will sort of encourage the cross energy. So when you're like holding the ball, it's the top hand that's fist, yeah. And when you're in ward off, it's the ward off hand that's in the fist, yeah. So you want that feeling that the two sides of the body are very different. And then energy will flow. There'll be a potential difference, so energy will flow. Yeah. And the feet as well. So it's not just my hand that makes the fist, it's that foot as well. So this foot is sort of clenching the ground, clenching the carpet. And the other one opens. Yeah, and if you could, you'd like to be able to do it with the back heart. So the back heart is like the Min Meng, an exit point for energy. You'd like to be able to sort of reach up there and pull the energy around. And then with the back of the head as well. But it's difficult. Ooh. Okay, and then just back to yeah, so just feel yourself, coming back to you, but with all of this sort of layers and layers and layers of billowing energy coming out of your back. So, when John, after years and years and years of sort of working on this and quietening and quietening and quietening the mind, it's like the energy that swirls around from your relaxing back and your turning. For John, it started to sort of take a shape. He started to sense that it's not just general sort of energy, it does actually have a shape. And that's when he got into that sort of energy body, that dragon body that we worked on in Blakeney. Just make sure this, just don't let the bum stick out. So from the ground to the hand, you're just one thing, you're just all spine. Yeah, so it feels like you've got like Little Red Riding Hood. She had this cape with the hood. It's a bit like you got one of those on. You've got this sort of covering of energy round from your back, and the cowl, the hood, the baggy hood that hangs over. And then that's important because that is basically the shape of the guardian, the big energy behind you. Yeah? So one of the reasons we get this, we pay so much attention to this rising space here, is to get the opposite, the behind appearing, coming out of the gloom, looming from the gloom. Yeah? So you get this sense that you are actually being embraced from behind by an aspect of your energy that only sort of appears when you pay attention to the other, when you give the other that reverence. So as soon as I bring my attention to it, as soon as I try to look over my shoulder, it just disappears, it sucks right back in. Yeah, so by concentrating on one thing with such intensity, the opposite appears. Yeah, this is one of the principles, that's the principle of Taoism, basically. And you just want a sense of that. Yeah? You want to allow it to happen, because if you resist it, it won't happen. And ignorance is a form of resistance. Yeah? Okay, and now let's just bring it back to attention posture. So let's just finish. But again, just feeling the two sides of the body, they can so easily just slip into full and empty. It's like it's wanting to happen. There's like a resonance between them all the time. You just want to sort of do this. It's almost like you're perched on a rock here, and it's a little bit artificial. And again, with this sense of the spine merging down rather than this, which is sort of my tailbone sticking back a little bit. I just want to get that passing straight down the legs. And it's difficult. Because that principle of, when you concentrate on one thing with like a good concentration, then the other appears, the opposite appears. It's the same when you work. So when you work at something hard, the body just gets tired, you just can't do it anymore. So there's almost a sense that you've done the opposite, you've gone backwards. But that's just part of the process. So you just have to leave that fallow a while and just concentrate on something else, and it'll come back. So the work, it's a bit like crop rotation. You work on one thing for a while and then leave it and then work on something else. So you're just rotating. It may take 2 or 3 years to get through everything. And the next time you come back to it, you're just amazed at just how much better you are, how much more deeply you understand it. Yeah, so when you're standing, just imagine you're standing in front of someone, yeah? And you're just allowing this lift of brightness to come up their body. And they're doing the same to you, of course. And then you can begin to feel the thymus, yeah? So when you interact with the other person in this compassionate way, so you've got the embrace, which is sort of basically your ward-offs, yeah? But then you've got this, yeah? Then as you stand there, it's almost like you start to become organized about this point, yeah? And they do, especially. If you do it with another person, you're standing in front of them, you just can't take your eyes off it, because that's where they are, yeah? They're there. It's what John called the jewel in the heart. When I was with him, he later termed it the thymus. And it sort of sparkles, yeah? It's a source of light. Okay, great. So let's